Alright people, how's it going? Hope you're all well. So I'm just going to do a quick rundown behind the scenes, going through the light setup, going through this entire shoot. Hopefully you'll find it useful. Let's get straight into it. So let's just take a freeze frame here and I'll just go through the actual set. So let's start off by looking at this area and we'll just start from the back. And I think to make this easier, I'll actually draw a lighting diagram as I'm going through it. So first and foremost, the issue you always tend to run into is having a set that's wide enough to allow you to kind of move around the front of the set and still get a load of different angles without shooting like walls or curtains or anything that you don't want in the set. So the idea behind this was to make a set that was wide enough and high enough to give me a range of different shots from different angles without me having to draw in extra white panels or anything like that. So let's start from the back. You'll notice over here in the back we've got a large backdrop stand with the bar and a white paper roll. So this is just normal seamless, white seamless, right? So we've got our backdrop here. These are the kind of like the poles. And then we've got our white seamless just sat here on the back, right? So that's our paper roll, and that's about 2 meters wide by about 2.5 or 3 meters high. So I've got the large backdrop stand. It's going up quite high, and it's giving me a width which I should be happy with. However, to extend the background further, you'll notice here I've got a V-flat, and this is just foam board, and actually they weren't tall enough. There's actually 2 pieces here. There's one here and there's one here, and they've been taped to another 2 pieces here and here just to give that extended height, okay? And they've been added on the sides of the set. So I've got kind of like one coming off here. I'll just draw that in here. One coming off like this, and on the opposite side I've got the exact same thing. So that's giving me a little bit of extra width. And then you'll notice there is another one that's exactly the same as this, okay? The only difference is the way this is positioned is it's positioned more like that. So you'd actually see the back panel, you will see the front panel only, and that's giving me another rectangle, and again it's kind of just filling in that space. And likewise, I've got the same thing going on the opposite side. I'll just throw that one in as well. Okay, so we've got this, and then we've got our strong wall. So this is like a full-on stage wall, right? So if I was to draw this from the side, you've basically got models stood here. I'm over here with my camera. This is a stage wall. This is 2.5 meters by 3 meters high. And we've got a proper setup here, and that was made by a carpenter. So that's solid wood. There's a wood frame there, and this allows me to kind of paint this surface any color I want. And the benefit of using a solid wall is obviously the model can lean up against it and all that kind of stuff, and it just makes for a nice solid rigid set. So here we've got the solid wall, all right, and that's not as wide as the actual paper roll, but it's good enough, so that's there. And then in front of that we've got these cubes. We've got one here. This one that she sat on, I think, was the I think that's the 50 by 80 centimeters, and then we've got another one here. This is a 50 by 50, and then I've got this one here. That one is a 1 meter by 50, as far as I remember. So we've got a cuboid. We've got a cuboid here. We've got another one here, and we've got another one here. And then this piece right here, this is just some foam, just like this, but it's actual polystyrene, so it's got a bit more thickness to it. And that is just, again, here, propped up here. So the idea is we're creating various different shapes and they're going to accompany, with those, you're going to get a little bit of a shadow, right? So you're getting all this geometry, these lines and so forth, in and around the background. Now, on the floor, you'll notice here, this is paper roll, just like this one, but it's grey, and it's a light grey. So this is rolling right out here, and you can see I've just taped it down here, here, and here. Obviously, the model is kind of sat right here with her outfit on, and I'm just over here with my camera, right? So we've got a paper roll, it's a light grey, and then over here we've got another piece of white, and that was just because when I was coming around some of these angles, I could see that, you'll notice in this shot here, there is some ground, but that wasn't actually seen in the camera when I was shooting, just because of like the angles that I was using. So that is actually the set. So if we look at the individual components, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pieces that are stood up, and then we've got obviously the floor piece there. So let me just turn that off. So that's the actual the set. Right, now let's have a look at the light. Now, before we actually get into the main light, because it is really only one light setup, I'll just tell you what this is doing. This is an LED light, okay? And that's just throwing light up into the ceiling, which is then hitting this ceiling, bouncing back, and it's just flooding this area all with light. This is going to obviously allow me to get a good focus. The camera's got plenty of light to get a good focus. I can also shoot the video, and it's fairly well exposed. And this is a Genere. I think it's a 1200D. It's a powerful LED light. It's got a Bowens mount. It allows you to put modifiers on it. It runs cool. It's a brilliant light. Very good value for money. Bought it from B&H. I've got two of these. I've got one here, and I've got another one on the opposite side of the frame. Now, I'm going to show you a reverse shot so you can see the other side, and we'll talk about the light setup. Okay, so this is another shot. This is the reverse angle, and again, you can see hopefully fairly clearly. We've got the floor, we've got the boxes, we've got the foam board, we've got the backdrop, we've got the V flat, and we've got another V flat here. We've got a second Genere again, knocking up light into the ceiling, which is flooding back down, lighting up the area. And here on this large light stand, we've got a big modifier. Now, you can't really see it very well from this image, so I'm just going to bring up another picture that I've got, which should hopefully make it much clearer for you. All right, so hopefully this will help for you to have a look at the actual light itself, which is quite simply a one light setup. We've got a 7-foot silver parabolic Westcott with diffusion panel umbrella, right? So obviously, with the light is hitting into the silver here. It's parabolic design. The light's been pushed out to all the edges, and if you look at the spread of light, what's going on? So the light spread is wide, right? It's like this. This is a light spread. And the beauty is, the one light setup is flooding this whole area, and because we've got all these white shapes, light is just kind of bouncing all over the place, and it's giving us a really nice exposure. And because we've got silver within here, we've got the silver, that's obviously going to create a little bit more contrast and a little bit more punch. And you notice that when you look at the highlights in the model's skin, and the way any of the details in the clothing, the reflective stuff kind of sparkles. But you're still getting a relatively soft shadow, okay? And that's purely because we're using a big light source and we've got a lot of bounce. Now, if I wanted harsher shadows, I'd just simply take this light and take it right back out of sight, okay? And that would obviously make the light smaller in relationship to the model. And now let's have a look at the angle of the light as well. Okay, so obviously we've got the light stand right here. We're kind of a little bit more than I would say. If this is if this was 90 degrees and this was 90 degrees here, we're right here. We are right about 45 degrees tilt, okay? Because I want that light to come out and flood the whole space. I don't really want there to be too much bias on one side and not enough on the other. All right, so this is a really good example, and you can see the way the light is actually falling. A one light setup. Now, it's important that when you're using a big modifier like this, that you use an adequate studio head or any kind of strobe, and you select enough power in order to fill the modifier full of light. And that sounds daft, but if you're using your modifier with your light source, and let's say you take an image, you're at quarter power, okay, and you realize, oh, the skin and the set doesn't look very good, it's not bright enough, you're not giving enough power into the modifier, if you're not shooting enough power into the actual light, what you end up getting is you end up getting a pool of light that'll hit the back of the modifier, and it won't have enough power to get all the way around. It'll just come out like this. Right, and then you will look at your picture, and obviously you look at the face and you'll go, oh, the model's skin is underexposed, or it's just not right enough. And then you actually realize it's not necessarily because you haven't actually put in enough light power. You might be thinking, oh, the angle's not right, or I need to change my ISO, or I need to bring down my aperture. And if you want to get the full quality of light, you've got to fill the modifier with enough light. All right. And I've learned this through years of photography, that if you want to get the maximum quality of light that you're after in such a big umbrella, you need to make sure you've got enough adequate power so it really fills the entire modifier with light, and it will then give you the full quality of light that you want. Okay, and then if it's too bright, then obviously you can just adjust your aperture and so forth. So that's really important. Fill your big modifiers with enough light. Now, another beautiful thing about a big light source like this, and using a lot of these white elements, is the model can actually be anywhere, and you don't have to adjust the light, you don't have to adjust the power. You can see the spread of light is super even right across the set. Okay, so that was the light. It's a Westcott 7-foot parabolic silver umbrella with diffusion, 45 degrees. And if we actually look at the height of the light, this is super important as well. If we imagine the model is stood here, the middle of the light, okay, is kind of pointing down into the middle of the scene, but the bottom part of the light is actually above eye level, right? And generally, when I'm thinking about the height of the light, I'm generally going for chin, eye, or just above eye level in terms of the bottom of the light. Okay, and especially if it's angled down. I just find by doing that, we get a good spread of light, which will illuminate the model from head all the way down to her toes. And this is critical, because if you are working with fashion and clothing, 90% of the time you are going to really want to illuminate all the clothing, unless you're doing an artistic editorial or something. You want to illuminate everything. I often see in photographers' work, they're using a light source, the top part of the model is lit, and then it falls off to darkness very quickly, and then you lose the exposure on the bottom. So you can do that by obviously changing the angle, using a bigger light source, or you can substitute a second lower light source, which could be kicking in light from the bottom, but in this case, that was not needed. Alright, so here we are in Camera Raw, just so you can see the original image. Here it is. This is the raw photograph, straight out of camera. Nothing's been done to it at all. I shoot in RAW and I shoot in a large JPEG, and you can see overall everything looks beautiful. Here are the camera settings. We've got f8, 1/60th of a second, ISO 200, 24-70 with the 70mm. These are my go-to settings when I'm in the studio. I'll adjust my aperture until I get it to f8. That's what I want. That's what I need for the sharpness from head to toe. Sometimes I'm at 5.6. Up to f8. Generally, I don't go over f8 unless I'm doing beauty work. then I'm hitting up F11 and that kind of thing. So let's have a look at the quality of the light on the model's face. Beautiful. We've got nice highlights here on the bridge of the nose and on the forehead. We've got the catch lights in the eye, and everything from the top all the way down here to the bottom is perfectly exposed. And there's not a lot that needs doing right now in the image. We've got a nice exposure. What I tend to do, I just tend to just pull up the exposure just a bit, just to bring a bit more contrast in the eyes and in the skin. Just bring up that light, add a bit more contrast, and I will come into sharpening, drop a little bit of sharpening in, and that is it. That's my image, and I'm done with that. Okay, and that's it. It's pretty much done. If I need to do any retouching on the skin and then the hair, I will obviously go through and do that. But essentially, that is it. Now you can go into grading if you wanted to, added some color grade, but for this shoot, I wanted to keep it clean, I wanted to keep it natural. And I won't necessarily do this in Camera Raw, do it in Lightroom on one image, sync the entire set, bing bang bosh, done job, ready to move on. Okay, so you can see that. I'll just open up another raw file here, just so you can see the light spread from head to toe. That's fine. Exposure, just bump it up a little bit, and that's it. I'm just going to click on quickly. Okay, this is what I mean. Look, we've got even light from the head all the way down into the mid, all the way right down to the bottom. Yeah, everything, all the details are there in the clothing. And notoriously we shoot a lot of black clothing out here, so we do have designs which have little details in the black, and it's important that you get a good exposure in order to bring out all that beautiful design work that's been put in there. Again, look at the light, beautiful. Got the catch light in the eye, got a shadow under there. It's a soft shadow. Remember, we're getting reflections here. If these boxes weren't white, if we didn't have so much white in the set, we would have a slightly different look. But as it stands in this shot, we've got that nice natural fill light, but still a little bit of shadowing. So we've got that three-dimensionality to the face. Thanks for listening. Hopefully I've not bored you to death. Any questions, let me know. I'll catch you next time.